Hello. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is make a very simple test scene to make sure everything's working. My notes for all this are up on my website, teaching my primer test scene. And I'm actually just going to go through these notes as we go. Okay, so what's the first thing we're going to do? Open, demo, whatever. File, recent files, demo, okay. All right, so nothing's in there. So what's the next thing we're going to talk about? Okay, key commands. All right, so to move around, if you hold down Alt and click, that spins. And then if you Alt and right click or middle, this is middle click, you do whatever this is, pan. And then if you Alt and the other button, you zoom forward. I don't even know what the buttons are anymore. It's just like what my fingers do. But I have it written down. Let's see. Alt left click tumbles. Alt middle click pans. Alt right click dollies. So what's great about this is exactly the same way to move around in Houdini if you ever get into Houdini. So that's handy. And it's kind of similar to Cinema. But whenever I'm in Cinema, I have a really hard time moving around, so it has to be a little bit different. But anyway, after a while, it's just like second nature. You don't even think about it. That's how we move around in the scene. Okay, so now let's create polygon primitive cone. And I'm going to go over to the channel box. So over here, there's these tabs that let you do things. So the channel box has its translation attributes as well as other potential things. Right now we're just looking at polycone, and I'm going to move it up. Negative x. So y negative 1. Whoops. Y 1. Y, whoops. Cool. Now it's on the floor. And then this guy we're going to move over. Negative 3. Okay? Now, I put it in precise coordinates in the channel box here. You can also use these tools over here to rotate, scale, translate, and then there's two different kinds of selection. I'm not going to really worry about that too much yet, but I never go over here. I do it all with hotkeys. So Q is selection mode. W is translation. E is rotate, not R, which knows why it's like that. And then R is scale. And then if you want to undo things, you can either hit Command Z or just Z. Okay? So there's our cone. Let's make a sphere. Cool. And let's move this guy up 1. And the last one, well, not the last one, the next one is a cube. And the cube, we are going to set the translate to 1, the x to 3, I would imagine. Don't have this in the notes, have to add it. 3, cool, and we see it's a little smaller than its friends. So there's two places we can change this. We can either change the scale to 2, or this is called the creation node. I'll get into this more later, but for now, let's do it over here. So it's created at this scale, and then we're just setting, when it's born, it's this size, and then when we manipulate it, we can change these scale values. Okay? I kind of like setting up things so that the scale is, well, any attribute is where it's like resting position would be all zeros and a 1. But anyway, what do we got next? So we have 3 objects. Let's also create polygon plane. And then this, I have set the x, y, z, 10. And then I'm going to set the subdivisions. So this is how many subdivisions there are. So I actually want these to be 2. Okay, what else do I have on our list of things to do here? Oh, so I put a little time into this. So now instead of saving, this is really important. I highly recommend whenever you're doing any scripting, any After Effects, whatever, anything that's could crash and die on you, it's better to increment and save than save. And if you notice, there is a hotkey there, Alt Command S. So as I work, whenever I've done something I like, I'll hit Alt Command S, Alt Command S, Alt Command S. And then I'll end up with, hundreds of versions of my Maya scenes. They're not that big, and then I can always go back in time, and if something goes wrong, I can kind of try to backtrack and figure out what happened. So it's just the way to go. And then, you can make your producers happy because you can always go back to an earlier version. Okay, so I got a plane, and I got some stuff. All right, so I'm like, okay, let's make a render. So I'm gonna go. So if you notice, make this bigger. In Maya, it's almost like each one of these is a different program. That's how much is going on here. So we're changing it from the modeling program to a rigging program to an animation program, a visual effects program, a rendering program, okay? It's kind of an oversimplification, but anyway, that's how much it is. And then even in here, it's kind of like a rabbit hole. There's a lot. Maya's kind of like an onion. The further in you go, the more there is to it. But you could do a lot with very, very basic things. So anyway, rendering, Arnold, open Arnold render view. So here we go. Here's our Arnold render view. And if I want it to render, I hit play. And what'll happen is it'll just keep playing. So you'll see how cool this is in a second. Oh, look, it's being helpful. I see a black frame. Warning, there's no lights in the scene. Okay, cool, because there's just geometry, but there's no lights. So let's fix that. What do I have next here? Okay, so we're gonna do Arnold lights, Arnold light. So there's a million lights both in Arnold and Maya, but you really only ever use, well, you occasionally use these guys, but for 99.9% of the jobs you're going to do, it's going to be these 3. And even the Sky Dome, lately, I don't use it that much. So let's do the first one, area light. And we are going to make it, move it up out of the way. And then we're going to, right now, if we look at it, it's pointing that way. Just get the little pointer thing. So we'll make that -90. And then let's make it bigger. Okay, so then we get a light. 3 objects. We'll go back to Arnold. Oh, look, there's something there. Cool. All right, and we can boost the, this just is boosting the display port, but it's not actually changing the render. So let's, you know what, actually let's just leave this open because it's pretty neat. So it's there, I hit play, and it's going. And now, if I go to my light, so I could either change the intensity or the exposure. The exposure is more like a camera, where each f-stop is twice as much light. And so for me, based on having a photography background, it's like a little bit more intuitive. The kind of useful thing about it is that these are like kind of reasonable numbers. If you use intensity, it's, you know, everything is double, right? So the numbers can get really, really big. Anyway, I just like exposure better. So we'll set that to 5, and that looks like pretty good exposure. Let's go ahead next list. And yeah, okay, there's some stuff. Okay. So next, let's check out. So there's these objects, right? And if I click on them, I see that these little menus are updating. If I click on things, we see the channel box is updating, but I kind of want to just see how my scene is organized, keep track of things, name things, etc. Say panel, panel, outliner, and then I'm actually going to stick it over here. Okay. So here in our scene, we have these 4 grayed out cameras. Okay? These are called your modeling cameras. You could, in theory, frame up your perspective camera and animate your perspective camera and render through your perspective camera, but that is a really bad idea because, well, every time you change your view, you're going to change your scene. I also think it can cause render issues, but regardless, it's supposed to be for modeling. So if you want a camera for rendering, the first thing you do is select perspective, and I'm hitting Command D, and I'm duplicating it. By default, it just copies the name and adds a number after it. I like to call my render camera shot cam. So anybody who opens up the scene knows what's up. Okay? So now, to change into shot cam, I say, with shot cam selected in the outliner, I go panel, perspective, shot cam. So now I'm looking in the shot cam, and because I duplicated perspective, it's the same point of view. So now I can do this, right, and I can frame up my shot, and if I want to go to perspective, I still have it. This is my modeling camera, and my shot camera. Okay, let's see. So another useful thing about Maya as a designer is you can, there's all these different tools you can use to help frame up a shot. So that's super handy because we're designers, right? We want to put this in just the right spot, our little humble scene here. So that's really handy, and there's a million options here. But for now, I would just say, let's just turn on this one so we can see how we like it, okay? And then this was a fair amount of work, so I'm gonna hit Command-Alt-S, and now I got another one, okay? Then I'm going to go back to open on the render view, hit refresh, play, and what happened? This doesn't look like that. And I guess all I had to do was just hit it again, force it to update. And now, what should happen is as I move around the scene, it's going to update pretty fast too, actually. And I'm just on my laptop. And I can move this around and it'll change the lighting. You can see what you're doing. Okay? So, what do I want to do next? Maybe I want to render this thing out. Okay, so the education version of Maya and the default version of Maya lets you render with Arnold, which is cool, but it doesn't let you use the batch rendering tools. Maybe at the school they've had this set up. But anyway, for me at home, what I do, if I'm like, okay, I love my scene, I need to see some frames. I go to, let's see here, Windows, rendering editors, render view, okay, and a render sequence option, and then I set it to the camera I want, and then I hit, maybe I'm going to save it. I'm not going to increment, I'm just going to save. I'm going to say render sequence and close. Now it's cooking. And it's rendering a bunch of frames. And why is that? That's because we asked it to. So if I go back to, well, I can't do anything. I just got to let it do its check. But I guess while that's going, we can go over here, check something out that's interesting. So if we go to Documents, Demo Maya Project, Images, so renders pop up in Images. Oh, look, cool. It's automatically created a folder that's named after my scene. It's automatically created a default render layer. And if we make this a little further, it says what the render layer is, underscore what the name of my scene is, underscore dot version, dot frame number. And it's kind of a mouthful, but what's really cool about it is you can know, based on the name of this frame, you can kind of go back in time and figure out everything you need to know about where it came from. Okay? And I said 10 frames, and there's 10 frames, and that's it.